You just landed a promotion, the one you've been working toward for years. Your colleagues congratulate you, your family celebrates. You smile, say thank you, accept the praise, and inside, a quiet voice whispers, they're going to figure out you don't deserve this. Or maybe you've just finished a project you poured your heart into. People are impressed, they tell you it's amazing, but all you can see are the flaws, the things you could have done better, the ways it falls short of what you imagined. You achieve something and within hours, sometimes minutes, the satisfaction evaporates, replaced by a familiar, gnawing feeling. It's not enough. I'm not enough. You're not celebrating your wins. You're already thinking about the next mountain you have to climb to prove yourself, to finally feel worthy, to finally feel like you've arrived. Except you never do, because for some people, good enough isn't a destination. It's a horizon that keeps moving. No matter how far you run, you never get closer. This is the psychology of chronic inadequacy, of living with an internal measuring stick that's calibrated to impossible, of being your own harshest critic, your own relentless judge, your own never-satisfied taskmaster. And here's what makes it so insidious. From the outside, you might look successful, accomplished, put together, but inside you're running a race you can never win. This is for you, the high achiever who never feels the high, the perfectionist who's never perfect enough, the person who's learned to equate their worth with their output and found that no amount of output ever quite adds up. Let's talk about why you feel this way, where it comes from, and what it's actually costing you. Let's start by naming what this actually is. We're not talking about healthy self-improvement. We're not talking about having standards or wanting to grow. We're talking about something deeper, something that feels less like motivation and more like survival. Psychologists call it chronic inadequacy or persistent feelings of unworthiness. But those clinical terms don't quite capture the lived experience, do they? It feels like this. You discount your achievements. When you succeed, you explain it away. I got lucky. Anyone could have done that. They don't see all the mistakes I made. It wasn't actually that hard. You have a dozen reasons why your accomplishments don't count, and somehow they all feel true. You compare yourself to an impossible standard, not to other people, though you do that too, but to some idealized version of yourself, the you that never makes mistakes, never struggles, never needs help, never feels uncertain or afraid. You measure your real human self against this flawless phantom, and you always come up short. You move the goalposts. You think, if I can just get this job, I'll feel secure. And then you get the job, and immediately the goalpost shifts. If I can just get promoted, if I can just buy the house, if I can just lose the weight, if I can just find the relationship. Each achievement is supposed to be the thing that finally makes you feel enough. And each time the relief lasts about as long as a sunset. You struggle to accept compliments. Someone praises your work, and your first instinct isn't gratitude, it's suspicion. They're just being nice. They don't really mean it. If they knew the truth, they wouldn't say that. Compliments bounce off you like rain off a windshield. But criticism, that soaks in deep. That feels true. You fear being exposed. This is the imposter syndrome piece. The belief that you've somehow fooled everyone into thinking you're competent, talented, worthy. But it's only a matter of time before they see through the facade. So you work harder, achieve more, prove yourself again and again, hoping to build a resume so impressive that even you can't deny your worth. But it never works, because the problem isn't your resume, it's the lens through which you're viewing it. Sound familiar? If so, you're not broken. You're not uniquely flawed. You're carrying a belief system that was installed in you long before you had the consciousness to question it. Here's the thing people don't tell you about feeling not good enough. It's not actually about you. It's about the messages you absorbed, the environment you grew up in, the way love and approval were or weren't given to you when you were learning what it means to be a person in the world. Let's talk about where this begins: conditional love. Maybe you grew up in a home where love felt earned, not given, where praise came when you performed well, good grades, good behavior, achievements, but withdrew when you didn't. You learned implicitly that your worth was tied to your output, that you mattered when you succeeded, and you were a disappointment when you failed. This doesn't require cruel parents. It can happen in subtle ways. A father who only lights up when you bring home an A, a mother whose affection increases when you're helpful, quiet, easy. You weren't unloved, but love felt conditional, transactional, something you had to earn over and over. And so you learned, I am what I achieve. High expectations, low reassurance. Or maybe your parents had high expectations but never quite said you'd met them. You brought home a 95 and they asked about the 5 points you missed. You won second place and they reminded you first place was possible. Not out of malice, out of a belief that pushing you would make you better. But what you internalized wasn't, I can do better. It was, I'm never quite there. You grew up in an environment where the bar was always just out of reach, and you learned to see yourself through that lens, always close, never enough. Perfectionist modeling. Maybe you had a parent who was a perfectionist themselves, who never seemed satisfied with their own work, who redid things obsessively, criticized themselves harshly, lived in a state of chronic striving. You didn't learn this through lectures, you learned it through observation. You watched the person you loved most in the world treat themselves like they were never good enough, and you absorbed that as normal, as how you're supposed to be. Early criticism or comparison. Or maybe you were compared to a sibling, a classmate, an idealized version of who you should be. Maybe you were told you weren't as smart, as talented, as charming, as fill in the blank, and that message became the water you swam in. Children are meaning-making machines. When they're criticized or compared, they don't think, that person is being unfair. They think, there's something wrong with me. And that belief, it doesn't go away just because you grow up. Trauma and insecurity. Sometimes it's not about achievement at all. Sometimes you grew up in an environment that felt unstable, financially, emotionally, relationally, and you learned that nothing is ever truly secure. That safety is an illusion, that you have to keep striving, keep proving, keep earning your place, because it could all disappear at any moment. This isn't conscious, it's survival wiring. Your nervous system learned to live in a state of vigilance, and never good enough is just the cognitive version of that. The core wound. All of these paths lead to the same place, a deep, unspoken belief that who you are, fundamentally, is not enough. Not what you do, who you are. And once that belief is in place, everything you achieve becomes evidence that doesn't count, because achievements are external, and the wound is internal. You're trying to fix an inside problem with outside solutions, and it will never work. Fast forward to now. You're an adult, you're capable, maybe even successful by external measures. But that core wound, it's still running the show. Let me show you how. Overworking and burnout. You don't just work hard, you work compulsively. You say yes to everything. You're the first one in, the last one out. You take on more than you should because you're terrified of being seen as lazy, or incompetent, or worst of all, average. And when you do achieve something, you can't rest, because rest feels like regression, like you're slipping backward, like if you're not actively moving forward, you're failing. So you burn out, not once, but over and over, because the treadmill doesn't stop. Perfectionism that paralyzes. You want everything you do to be flawless, which sounds admirable, except it's not actually about excellence. It's about protection. If you can make it perfect, no one can criticize you. If you can control every detail, you can avoid the shame of falling short. But perfection is impossible. So instead, you procrastinate, or you obsess over minor details, or you never finish projects because they're never quite good enough to release into the world. Your perfectionism isn't helping you succeed, it's keeping you stuck. Difficulty accepting help. Asking for help feels like admitting weakness, and weakness feels like proof that you're not enough. So you do everything yourself. You struggle in silence, you pretend you have it all together, even when you're drowning, and then you resent people for not seeing your struggle, for not offering help you'd never accept anyway. Relationship struggles. You might sabotage relationships because you don't believe you're worthy of love, or you stay in relationships where you're undervalued because it confirms what you already believe about yourself. You might overfunction, becoming the caretaker, the fixer, the one who's always giving, because you've learned that your worth lies in what you do for others, not in who you are. Or you might keep people at arm's length, because if they get too close, they'll see the truth, that you're not as put together as you seem, and you can't risk that. Chronic anxiety. You live with a background hum of dread. not about anything specific. Just a vague, constant feeling that something's wrong, that you're forgetting something, that you're not doing enough. That disaster is always one mistake away. This isn't clinical anxiety, though it can become that. It's existential anxiety. The anxiety of living like your worth is always on trial. No internal sense of accomplishment. You hit milestones that other people would celebrate, and you feel nothing. Or worse, you feel fear, because now you have more to lose, more pressure to maintain, more proof that you're an imposter. Your accomplishments don't build confidence, they build dread. Let's talk about what this is actually costing you. Because it's not just about feeling bad, it's about what you're losing while you're busy trying to prove you're enough. You're not enjoying your life. You're achieving things, but you're not savoring them. You're not present for your own wins. You're not celebrating milestones. You're not letting yourself feel proud. You're climbing the mountain, but you're not enjoying the view. Because you're too busy looking for the next peak. You're exhausting yourself. Living in a constant state of striving is physiologically depleting. Your body thinks you're in danger. Your nervous system is in chronic activation. You're running on adrenaline and cortisol, and it's wearing you down. The burnout isn't a character flaw. It's your body saying, this is unsustainable. You're alienating people. Your perfectionism makes you hard to work with. Your inability to accept help makes you seem closed off. Your need to prove yourself makes you competitive in ways that push people away. People don't dislike you, but they don't know how to connect with you because you won't let them in. You're missing the point. Here's the painful truth. You're so focused on becoming worthy that you're missing the fact that you already are. You were born worthy, not because of what you can do, but because you're a human being. Worthiness isn't something you achieve, it's something you are. But you've spent so long trying to earn what you already have that you can't see it. So what now? How do you heal from this? How do you learn to feel good enough when good enough has never been part of your vocabulary? First, let's be clear, this isn't a quick fix. You didn't develop this belief system overnight, and you won't undo it overnight. This is deep work, the kind that requires patience, self-compassion, and a willingness to challenge beliefs that feel like fundamental truths. But it's possible. Here's how. Recognize the pattern. The first step is awareness. You have to see the pattern for what it is, not truth, but a learned belief. A lens you've been looking through for so long you forgot it was there. Start noticing when the not good enough voice shows up. When do you discount your achievements? When do you move the goalposts? When do you feel like an imposter? Don't try to fix it yet, just notice. Because you can't change what you can't see. Separate your worth from your output. This is the hardest part, because it requires you to believe something you've been taught isn't true, that you have inherent worth, not because of what you do, but because you exist. Try this. Think of a baby, a newborn. Does that baby have to achieve anything to be worthy of love? No. They just are. They're worthy because they're here. You were that baby once, and nothing you've done or failed to do since then has changed your fundamental worthiness. Practice self-compassion. You've been your own harshest critic for so long, you don't know how to be anything else. But criticism doesn't make you better. It makes you smaller. Try talking to yourself the way you talk to a friend. When you make a mistake, instead of, I'm such an idiot, try, that was hard and I did my best. It will feel fake at first. Do it anyway. Your brain is learning a new language. Set boundaries with your inner critic. That voice that says you're not enough, it's trying to protect you. It thinks if it's harsh enough, you'll avoid failure, rejection, shame. But it's wrong, so when it shows up, acknowledge it. Thanks for trying to keep me safe, but I've got this. And then choose a different thought. Redefine success. What if success wasn't about achieving more? What if it was about being present, about doing your best and letting that be enough? About finding meaning in the process, not just the outcome. This doesn't mean lowering your standards. It means expanding your definition of what counts. Seek support. This kind of deep work often requires help. A therapist who specializes in shame, self-worth, or perfectionism can help you rewire these beliefs at a deeper level. You don't have to do this alone, and asking for help isn't weakness, it's wisdom. Listen, I know you're tired of striving, tired of proving, tired of never quite getting there. I know part of you believes that if you let go of this drive, this need to be more, do more, achieve more, you'll become lazy, mediocre, ordinary. But that's not what happens. What happens is this. You start to live. You start to enjoy your accomplishments instead of immediately moving past them. You start to connect with people instead of keeping them at a distance. You start to rest without guilt. You start to be present in your own life. And here's the surprising part. You don't achieve less. You often achieve more because you're no longer paralyzed by perfectionism. You're no longer burning out every 6 months. You're no longer running from a shame that never actually catches you. You're running towards something: purpose, joy, connection, meaning. You are not your achievements. You are not your productivity. You are not your to-do list. You are a person, a whole, complex, imperfect, beautiful person. And you were enough before you did anything. You're enough now. You'll be enough tomorrow. Not because you earned it, but because it's true. The mountain you've been climbing your whole life, you don't have to reach the top to be worthy. You are already there. You just forgot how to see it. This is not a call to stop growing, to stop trying, to stop wanting more for yourself. It's a call to stop equating your growth with your worth. You can strive and know you're enough. You can want to improve and accept yourself as you are. You can have goals and find peace in the present. The two are not mutually exclusive. You've been running a race with no finish line, thinking that if you just ran hard enough, fast enough, long enough, you'd finally arrive. But the truth is simpler and harder than that. You don't have to arrive. You're already here, and you're already enough.